Welcome to the Celtic Myth Pod Show, bringing the tales and stories of the ancient Celts to your fireside. Episode 5, Girding the Loins for Battle. Hello, welcome to episode 5. I'm Gary.
And I'm Ruth.
We'll start off with those all-important contact details. Our email addresses are given at the end of the show so that you can contact us and tell us what you think of the show. You can also talk to us using the feedback recorder on the website, CelticMythPodShow.com. It's below that feed widget in the left sidebar. It's labelled the Evoker browser mic. Just plug in a microphone into your computer, click on the red record button and talk to us. We'll get your voice. And you never know, you might hear yourself on the show. But on with the show, and we'll go on with some news and views.
On the website you will find news and blogs which contain Celtic mythology, news, and blogs from around the world, new books, games, archaeology, films, and some occasional stories and articles on Celtic folklore. Check out the resources page where you'll find character biographies that go with the stories, plus the show notes to go with each episode, and one or two other things you might find helpful. The forums are now working, and you will find there are all sorts of topics being discussed, plus some forum games, so drop in and say hello to us. Oh, and watch out for the introduction of our book list, which we'll be working on over the next couple of weeks.
On another note, J.C. Hutchins, the author and podcaster of the Seventh Son series of novels, has put forward an idea that I think is absolutely brilliant. He said, okay, all you guys who are podcasting, why don't you get bloggers to promote their blogs on your podcast? They do a lot to promote your podcast on their blogs. Why not do it the other way around? And I think that's a brilliant idea. What do you think?
I think it's super. Great
yeah,
idea.
absolutely. Because I know there are some blogs out there that are absolutely fascinating and that we go to all the time. So I'm sure you guys would love to know about them. We're kind of paraphrasing his words, but he says, if you want to promote your blog to thousands of engaged listeners for free, here's your chance. Create a 1-minute audio promo for your blog and send it to us. We'll play it in an upcoming episode. Done deal. No reciprocation needed. Creating an audio promo is easy. Write up a quick elevator pitch about what your blog covers, including your URL. That's your address. And that's it. Record it with a computer mic, email it to us, and we can play it. You could even use that feedback recorder that we've got on the website to do it if you want to.
And now to review the story so far.
In the last episode, the fleets of the Fomori set out for Erin, and when they land, they decimate the kingdom of Currach. Lugh of the Long Arm, the master of all arts, arrives at Tuatha and is welcomed by the High King Nuada, who places him on the throne for 13 days. Later, Lugh attacks a host of Fomori tax collectors, and when Balor hears of this, he demands the head of Lugh. We have heard the tale of how Lugh of the Long Hand, the master of all arts, came to Tuatha and was placed upon the throne of the High King by Nuada. We have heard how the black ships of the giant Balor make a bridge between the island of Tory and the land of Erin. But let us roll the mists of time backwards and unveil the birth of the child of promise. For only then can we see the twists of fate that make Balor seek Lugh's death. In the foretime, the Fomor used to come to Erin. Balor of the Strong Blows, or as some called him of the Evil Eye, was living on the island of the Tower of Glas. There was danger for ships that went near that island, for the Fomor would come out and take them. And some say the sons of Nemed in the old time, before the fair Bolg were in Ireland, passed near it in their ships, and they saw a tower of glass in the middle of the sea, and on the tower something that had the appearance of men. And they went against it with druid spells to attack it. The Fomor worked against them with druid spells of their own, and the sons of Nemed attacked the tower, and it vanished, and they thought it was destroyed. But a great wave rose over them, and all their ships went down, and all that were in them. After, the tower was there as it was before, with Balor living in it. The reason he was called of the Evil Eye was because there was power of death in one of his eyes, so that no person could look at it and live. This is the way it got that power. He was passing one time by a house where his father's druids were making spells of death, and the window being open, he looked in, and the smoke of the poisonous spells was rising up, and it went into his eye. From that time he had to keep it closed, unless he wanted to be the death of some enemy, and then the men that were with him would lift the eyelid with a great ring of ivory. Now a druid foretold one time that it was by his own grandson he would get his death. He had at that time but one child, a daughter, whose name was Eva. And when he heard what the druid said, he shut her up in the tower of the island. He put 12 women with her to take charge of her and to guard her, and he bade them never let her see a man, or hear the name of any man. So Eva was brought up in the tower, and she grew to be the most beautiful among women, a cliff without a wrinkle. And sometimes she would see men passing in their Currach, and sometimes she would see a man in her dreams. But when she would speak of that to the women, they would be silent and give her no answer. So there was no fear on Balor, and he went on with war and robbery as was his way, seizing every ship that passed by, and sometimes going over to Erin to do destruction there. Now it chanced at that time that there were 3 brothers of the Tuatha de Danaan living together in a place that was called Druim na Teine, the Ridge of the Fire. Goban and Soan and Cian. Cian was a lord of land, and Goban was a smith that had such a great name. Now Cian had a wonderful cow, the Glas Gaibhnenn, and her milk never failed. And everyone that heard of her coveted her, and many had tried to steal her away, so that she had to be watched night and day. One fine day, Cian was wanting some swords made, so he went to Goban's forge, and he brought the Glas Gaibhnenn with him, holding her by a halter. And when he came to the forge, his 2 brothers were there together, for Soan had bought some steel to have weapons made for himself. And Cian bade Soan to hold the halter while he went into the forge to speak with Goban. Now Balor had set his mind for a long time on the Glas Gaibhnenn, but he'd never been able to get near her up to this time. He chanced to be watching from not far off, and when he saw Soan holding the cow, he put on the appearance of a little boy, having red hair, and came up to him and told him he heard his 2 brothers that were in the forge saying to one another that they would use all his steel for their own swords and make his of iron. By my word, they will not deceive me so easily. Let you hold the cow, little lad. I will go into them. And with that, he rushed into the forge, and great anger was on him. And no sooner did Balor get the halter in his hand than he set out, dragging the glass with him to the strand and across the sea to his own island. When Cian saw his brother coming in, he knew that something was amiss, and he rushed out. And there he saw Balor and the Glas out in the sea. All he could do then was to reproach his brother and to wander about as if his wits had left him, not knowing what way to get his cow back from Balor. At last he went to a druid to ask an advice from him. And this is what the druid told him, that so long as Balor lived, the cow would never be brought back, for no one would get within reach of his evil eye. Cian went then to a woman druid, Birog of the mountain, for her help, and she dressed him in a woman's clothes and brought him across the sea in a blast of wind to the tower where Eva was. And then Birog called to the women in the tower and asked them for shelter for a high queen that she was after saving from some hardship. And the women in the tower did not like to refuse a woman of the Tuatha Danaan, so they let her and her comrade in. And then Birog, by her enchantments, put them all into a deep sleep, and Cian went to speak with Eva. When she saw him, she was amazed, for it was his face that she had seen in her dreams. So she gave him her love. But after a while he was brought away again on a blast of wind. And when her time came, Eva gave birth to 3 sons. When Balor found out, he bade his people put the children in a cloth and fasten it with a pin, and throw them into a whirlpool in the sea. And as they were carrying the children across an arm of the sea, the pin dropped out, and one of the children slipped from the cloth into the water, and they thought that he was drowned. But he wasn't. He was brought away by Birog of the mountain, and she brought him to his father Cian. And the boy learned at his father's side and in his uncle's forge. The child did also spend time at the court of Manannan MacLear in Tir Terengira, the land of promise. When he grew to the right age, Cian gave him to be fostered by Teiltiu, daughter of the king of the Great Plain. It is thus Lugh was born and reared. Let the mists of time roil back to cover this story, and let us look instead at the sunny court of Tavir, where Lugh of the Long Hand was at that time with the king of Erin, and it was showed to him that the Fomor were going to land at Esdara. And when he heard that, he made ready Manannan's horse, the Ainvar, at the time of the battle of the day and night. And he went where Nuada the High King was, and told him how the Fomor had landed at Esdara, and had spoiled Bovdurg's country. And is what I want, to get help from you to give battle to them. But Nuada was not minded to avenge the destruction that was done on Bovdurg and not on himself. And Lugh was not well pleased with his answer, and he went riding out of Tavir westward. And presently he saw 3 armed men coming towards him. His own father Cian, with his brothers Cu and Keten, that were the 3 sons of Kente, and they saluted him.
Well, son, what is the cause of your early rising?
It is a good cause I have for it, for the Fomor are come into Erin, and have robbed Bovdurg. What help will you give me against them?
Each one of us will keep off 100 from you in the battle.
That is a good help. But there is a help I would sooner have from you than that. To gather the riders of the Sidhe to me from every place where they are. So Cu and Keten went towards the south, and Cian set out northward, and he did not stop till he reached the plain of Muirhevna. As he was going across the plain, he lifted up his eyes and saw 3 armed men before him, that were the 3 sons of Tuireann, son of Ogma. And it is the way it was between the 3 sons of Tuireann and the 3 sons of Kente, that they were in hatred and enmity towards one another, so that whenever they met, there was sure to be fighting among them. Then Cian thought,
If my 2 brothers had been here, it is a brave fight we would make. But since they are not, it is best for me to fall back.
Then he saw a great herd of pigs near him, and as he was carrying a druid staff, which being an Ogham carved staff with a spell put in by the druids, he used it to put on himself the shape of a pig of the herd. And he began rooting up the ground like the rest. And then Brian, one of the Sons of Tuireann, said to his brothers,
Did you see that armed man that was walking the plain a while ago?
We did see him.
Know what it was took him away?
We do not know that.
It is a pity you not to be keeping a better watch over the plains and the open country in a time of war. And I know well what happened to him. For he cast upon himself the spell from his own druid staff and shifted into the shape of a pig of these pigs. And he is rooting up the ground now like any one of them. And whoever he is no friend to us.
That is bad for us, for the pigs belong to someone of the Tuatha de Danaan, and even if we kill them all, the druid pig might chance to escape us in the end.
It is badly you got your learning from the island of learning, when you cannot tell an enchanted beast from a natural beast.
And while he was saying that, he used his own druid staff and he turned them into two thin, fast hounds. And they began to yelp sharply on the track of the enchanted pig. And it was not long before the pig fell out from among the others, and not one of the others made away, but only itself. And it made for a wood, and at the edge of the wood, Brian gave a cast of his spear that went through its body. And the pig cried out, and it said,
It is a bad thing you have done to me to make a cast at me when you knew me.
Seems to me you have the talk of a man.
I was a man indeed. I'm Cian, son of Kente, and give me your protection now.
I swear by the gods of the air that if the life came back 7 times to you, I would take it from you every time.
If that is so, then grant me one last request. Let me go back into my own shape again.
We will do that, for it is easier to kill a man than a pig.
And Cian took his own form and said,
Ye see my face now, Sons of Tuireann, with blood on it. Well, ye knew me from the first, and well I knew you, oath breakers.
The bands of death on your poisonous tongue, take back your word.
I will not take it back, Sons of the Adder. Well, I have got the better of you for all that. For if it was in the shape of a pig you'd killed me, there would only be the blood fine for a pig on me. But as it's in my own shape you will kill me, there never was and never will be any person killed, for whose sake ever a fine will be paid for than for myself. Slay me, and every drop of blood will cry out on you. Your very weapons will cry out on you in the place of assembly.
Then we will slay you with weapons that cannot cry out.
It is not with weapons you will be killed, but with the stones lying on the ground.
and with that they pelted him with stones, fiercely and roughly, till all that was left of him was a poor, miserable, broken heap. And they buried him, the depth of a man's body in the earth. And the earth would not receive that murder from them, but cast it up again. And Brian said it should go into the earth again. And they put it in the second time. And the second time the earth would not take it. And 6 times the Sons of Tuireann buried the body, and 6 times it was cast up again. But the 7th time it was put underground, the earth kept it. The Sons of Tuireann hastened away from the place, and went to the court of King Nuada to show themselves with the other warriors. Meanwhile, the Dagda was travelling north, and he met a beautiful woman near his home at Gaibhnenn. She was washing herself in the river Winias of Currach, with one of her 2 feet at Eithne, to the south of the water, and the other at Los Quinn to the north of the water, and her hair was hanging in 9 loosened locks. She was the image of his heart's desire, and yet the heat of blood was in her breath, and so it was that he knew her for the battle crow, the Morrigan. The Dagda conversed with her, and they lay down together, as it would have to be every year and a day henceforth. The bed of the couple is the name of the stead from this time. Then she told the Dagda that the Fomori would land at Moiskedne, and that he should summon Erin's men of art to meet her at the ford of Winias, and that she would go into Skedna to destroy Indech, son of Dedomnan, the king of the Fomori, and would deprive him of the blood of his heart and the kidneys of his valour. As she had foretold, so it was that afterwards she gave her 2 handfuls of that blood to the hosts that were waiting at the ford of Winius. The Ford of Destruction became its name because of that destruction of the king. As Lugh had asked, the Dagda carried on to spy out the Fomor, and to delay them till such time as the men of Erin would come to the battle. So he came to their camp, and he asked them for that delay, and they said he might have it. And then, to make sport of him, the Fomori made broth for him, for he had a great love of broth. So they filled the king's cauldron with 4 times 20 gallons of new milk and the same of meal and fat. And they put in goats and sheep and pigs along with that and boiled all together. And then they poured it all out into a great hole in the ground. And they called him to it then. They told him he should eat his fill. That way the Fomor would not be reproached for want of hospitality, in the way that Bress was. Indech, son of Danaan, told him that they would make an end of him if he left any part of it. So the Dagda smiled to himself, for he knew what they were doing. He picked up the spoon, and it big enough for a man and a woman to lie in the bowl of it, and he took out bits with it, the half of a salted pig, and the quarter of lard as a bit would be.
This broth tastes as well as the bits taste. This is good food.
He went on putting the full spoon into his mouth till the hole was empty. And when all was gone, he put his curved finger into the bottom of the bowl amongst the mould and the gravel to get the last bits, and he sucked it clean. Sleep came on him then after eating the broth, and the Fomor were laughing at him, for his belly was the size of a great house's cauldron. He rose up after a while. Heavy as he was, he made his way home. What a sight he was! His cloak was now spread out like a tablecloth to his elbows and not hanging around him. He wore a dun tunic that was now so tight that it would not cover his bottom, and on his feet brogues of horsehide, swollen so much the horsehair was on the outside. In his hand a wheeled fork that would take 8 men to carry, so the track he left after him was deep enough for the boundary ditch of a province. As the Dagda slowly trudged to Tuatha, the encumbered hero met a beautiful young woman with an excellent figure, her hair in beautiful tresses, whom he greatly desired. However, he was impotent on account of his belly. The girl began to mock him, and then she began wrestling with him, and she hurled him so hard that he sank to the hollow of his rump in the ground.
What business did you have here, girl, heaving me out of my right way?
This business to get you to carry me to my father's house.
Who's your father?
I am Teine, the daughter of Indech, son of Danaan.
Ow! Oh!
There, I have beaten you so hard that you've lost the contents of your belly. Are you too old to carry me, and too fat to carry me, and too tired to carry me? You couldn't raise a smile. What sort of god are you?
I cannot carry you again, for I am engaged not to carry anyone unless they call me by my name.
So, what is your name?
Fairben.
That name is too much. Get up and carry me on your back, Fairben.
That's not my name.
What is it?
Fairben Mach.
Get up and carry me on your back, Fairben Mach.
That's not my name either.
So what is it?
Well, since you asked me 3 times, it is Fairben Bruach Broge, Bromida Kerbet Cake Broleg, Builklaber Kerker Di Brig Olahar Boit Argen, Methai Briter 3 Carboid Rot Rimere, Reog Scott Beorla Oleba.
Get up, carry me on your back, Fairben Bruach, Broge Brumida, Kerbet Cake, Roleg Bwilk, Labe Kerka, Dibri, Olaherboit, Agen Mihai, Batera Tree, Kaboiro, Rimoira Riok, Skopa Opta, Oleba. Get up, carry me away from here.
Then do not mock me anymore, girl.
That would be hard indeed.
But the Dagda could not move without lightening some of his load. So she waited for him to finish relieving himself. And she waited. And she waited. And she paced back and forth. Oh!
Come on.
Peace, girl. I'll see to your needs soon enough. Oh.
He got up then, and the girl jumped up on his back, and he put 3 big stones in his belt. And each stone fell from it in turn as he walked, and it has been said that they were his testicles which fell from it to the earth. The girl twisted in his arms and struck him across the rump, and her dress went right over her head, and the Dagda saw more of Erin that day than he had seen previously. They made love together then, and the mark still remains at Beltraw Strand where they came together.
You must not go to battle by any means.
Certainly I will go.
You will not go because I will be a stone at the mouth of every ford you cross.
That will be true. But you will not keep me from it. I will tread heavily on every stone, and the trace of my heel will remain on every stone forever.
Well, that will be true, but they will be turned over so that you may not see them. You will not go past me until I summon the Sons of Tuireann from the she-mounds, because I will be a giant oak in every ford, and every pass you will cross.
I will indeed go past, and the mark of my axe will remain in every oak forever.
Finally, the young woman told her lover that she would use her own magic to hinder the Fomori. And then she instructed the Dagda to allow the Fomor to enter the land, because the men of Erin would have all come together in one place. She said that she would hinder the Fomor, and that she would sing spells against them, and she would practice the deadly art of the wand against them. And she alone would take on a 9th part of the host. In the next episode, the murder of Lugh's father is revealed, and we see him take revenge. Before we move on to feedback, if you're not a whiskey wuss like I am, you'll probably find the next promo interesting.
This single malt is exceptional. Thank you, Wraith. How did you find this? Well, as I can't get around like you do, I have to rely on sources. Do you speak of those rascals, scallywags, and ne'er-do-wells at the Scotchcast? Yeah. Chip, Michael, and Jeff can teach old sea dogs like you new things about Scotch, and coach the curious on what makes a Scotch a single malt, cask strength, or portwood. 'Twill be a time before I invite them back to the Defiant. Why's that? Why do you think I'm drinking your Scotch? Those rogues drank all of mine. The Scotchcast, for good company, good spirits, and good resources concerning the single malt. www.thescotchcast.com.
And now for some listener feedback.
Before we give you some feedback, we'd like to announce that in the future, before any feedback is broadcast, we will contact you and get your permission. We've had a suggestion that not everybody is comfortable having their emails read on air. So please accept our apologies. It won't happen again. One of our site members suggested that...
I also have a suggestion for the website. In the podcast, you named several locations in Ireland. Would it be possible to include a map that shows where these places are, assuming their locations are known?
Yes, certainly. Not a problem. You'll see we've already done that. If you go to our resources, you'll find the maps of Ireland with all the places listed that we can find.
And that is a good idea. the maps, I think, look really cool. They're also downloadable for Google Earth.
Excellent.
So if you're familiar with that package, you can actually zoom in and have a look at the terrain, at the locations. Oh, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's go and have a play. It's really, really quite fun.
It's probably worth mentioning that a lot of the places are actually quite hard to identify. We've made some educated guesses, but if you can straighten us up as to exactly where these places are, please let us know. Thank you. Well, that wraps up this episode, and until next time, Slán go bhfuil. You've been listening to the Celtic Myth Pod Show, available from CelticMythPodShow.com. We hope you've enjoyed the show and will stay tuned for the next episode. You can send us a quick email or voice feedback by emailing either Gary, that's Gary, or Ruth, Ruth, at CelticMythPodShow.com. You can chat to us in the forums on our website. The show notes for this episode can also be found on the website. We'd like to say a special thank you to Kulan's Hounds, who provided us with the theme music for our show. You heard Haghole at the beginning and are listening to The Skylark now. You can find out more about this foot-stomping band at www.sfhounds.com. And thanks again to Diane Arkinstone and Kim Robertson, whose music has been used for some of the incidental music in this podcast. You'll find links to their websites in our show notes.